There have been 5 previous editions published since 2005 of Global Health Watches. The purpose of each is to present a more explicitly critical analysis of the state of the world's health than that which the WHO annual World Health Report used to be able to say, given intergovernmental sensitivities. And so he had subtitled the first 5 Global Health Watch editions as the Alternative World Health Report. But now that the WHO is no longer producing an annual health report, we dropped the reference to that with Global Health Watch 6. And instead, we subtitled it In the Shadow of the Pandemic, a reference, of course, to how SARS-CoV-2 arose from critical inequities in global health that preceded the pandemic, worsened them considerably, and still remains a long shadow over global health going forward. But I want to emphasize this is not a pandemic book. COVID's long shadow can be found in almost every chapter, but we wanted the book to be a useful tool for health activists now and as we emerge from the pandemic, as we are presently doing. And so the issues in the book covers is much, much more than just COVID.
In this episode of Charter4Health, we dive into the editing process and the importance of the Global Health Watch, flagship publication of the People's Health Movement. Welcome to Charter4Health, a PHM podcast series on the right to health. Hear the voices and insights of health rights defenders at the forefront of the struggle for health for all from around the world. I am your host, Miguel Garcia, and this is Charter4Health, a podcast series from PHM Global. Follow and share from wherever you are on iVoox or go to our website, phmovement.org. We are the People's Health Movement. Join us in the struggle for health for all. Our guest today is Chiara Bodini. She's a medical doctor and a surgeon, PhD in public health. She has a history of health activism and within the People's Health Movement, where she has been spokesperson for PHM Europe and a co-chair at PHM Steering Committee. At the moment, she's the co-editor of the Global Health Watch and the executive producer of the GHW Podcast. Hello, Chiara. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Miguel. My pleasure being here.
What are your memories from your experience at medical school working abroad in places like the Middle East or the Sub-Saharan Africa or Latin America?
Wow, yeah. These were the places where I actually first kind of tested what was my vision, that medicine could be a way to serve people and to serve the cause of human rights and social justice. And these are also the places where I found out that medical practice was not necessarily the solution. And in many cases, medical cooperation was actually reiterating the problems of global injustice and of colonialism, basically. So it's through those experiences that I actually met also the People's Health Movement and another way of working internationally through the approach of international solidarity and not development cooperation. And the two things are quite different.
Let's talk about the Global Health Watch. Two of the largest activities for PHM are, of course, the People's Health Assembly and the Global Health Watch. What is the importance of having a publication like the Global Health Watch for PHM?
Well, historically, it's been really a trademark of PHM. The Global Health Watch was, and I hope it still is, a repository of very sound critical analysis of why health and inequalities in health are present in the world, why and how they are perpetuated, and most importantly, who is responsible and who can act to revert the situation. So for me, it was a very inspirational book to encounter when I still was a medical student and afterwards. It's important to have this kind of knowledge. And I think growingly, the Global Health Watch is not just offering an analysis of the problems and their root causes, but also showing how a difference can be made and needs to be made through the struggle and resistance of people and movements. So it's also been a way through which we could connect to other movements, we could learn about other movements and make those voices more heard and more relevant on the global agenda.
Before getting into the content, let's talk about a little bit about the details of the book. Who are the authors? How many people are involved? How many countries? What are the challenges in the production of such endeavor?
Yeah, that's really quite complex because it's a collective book, meaning that it requires the effort of over 100, normally more than 100 contributors. The agreement that we have is that no single author is identifiable behind a single chapter or content of the book. And this is both for reflecting its collective nature and also at times for security reasons, for the security of the contributors that at times may find themselves in sensitive places. So this, of course, implies working across a different array of languages and at times also political positions. So interpretations that reflect different cultures of struggle and resistance in different continents. So the challenge is how to work through this diversity of the movement, providing something that is coherent in the end, but it's not predetermined, that it allows for this diversity to actually come through and becoming a richness for the movement. So of course, basically 99% of the effort is volunteer, so there is no remuneration for contributing to Global Health Watch. It's the process of reviewing is ensured internally and externally. So we have people reviewing the chapters and checking for, of course, accuracy and rigor, because we want Global Health Watch to be an activist book, but also a book that has a place and a standard that meets the academic standard. So can compare and can be used also in academic settings to inform also that type of knowledge reproduction.
What is the scope and the focus of the Global Health Watch, and how it has changed its approach since it was first published in 2003?
Well, the book has kept some sort of consistency in the way that it is structured. So we will have a first section dedicated to the global political and economic architecture, so setting the scene of the global crisis and how they impact on health and health equity. A second section dedicated to health systems and policies. A third one on the social determinants and determination of health. A fourth one on watching and monitoring the key institutions that have an impact on global health governance, and a fifth one dedicated to resistance and struggle. So this more or less, this structure has kept a consistency across the editions. But in a way, each edition of the book reflects also the status of the movement, in the movement and the reaction to the global crisis. So, for example, the last edition was actually produced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so all of these issues that I addressed were also analyzed through the lenses of the pandemic and the impact that the pandemic produced on health systems, on social determinants of health and global governance, and so on and so forth. I think another thing that is quite relevant, as I mentioned, is the attention to, and this is, it's not so easy to maintain this focus, that the issues are analyzed and looked from the perspective of the people who are most suffering from those challenges. So to give space to voices from the global south, from marginalized communities, so that the analysis that is produced is actually informed also by the lived experiences. So this is something that we are trying to do more in this edition, ensuring that each chapter is written by a group that represents voices from different regions, and so can provide this kind of comparison and analysis of experiences.
After the PHA5, there's the 2024 call to action, which is a very strong document, and it was developed after the discussion paper for the call to action. How is that going to be reflected on the Global Health Watch 7?
Yeah, I think if I can just take it in a bit larger way, the impact of the Assembly on Global Health Watch, which we did not have for the previous edition. So what happened is that in a way, as we were developing the program for the Assembly, we were also imagining the structure of the book, so that this kind of alignment between what the movement felt were the priority issues and how they are reflected in the chapters of the book, and even more the discussions and how they shaped some issues at the assembly were also, again, brought into the building of the book. And we took different directions for some chapters based on the discussions in the assembly. So the assembly provided a wonderful opportunity for the Global Health Watch to be informed by some of the most up-to-date tensions that the movement is going through. So specifically for the call to, so we'll have one chapter on, for example, ancestral and popular knowledges, which was one axis very developed at the assembly. The issue of gender and ecofeminism, and how, an ecofeminist view can inform a new vision of health and health for the world. I mean, these were kind of very lively discussions at the assembly, and they will be reflected in the book. And as far as the call to action, we will also have a dedicated chapter to the assembly and the call to action, so which will be specifically addressed in the book. That's also for sort of a further dissemination of the content of the call to action.
Let's take a short break. We're talking with Chiara Bodini on the Global Health Watch. Stay with us.
We
are the People's Health Movement.
PHM brings together health rights activists and organizations from around the world.
For over 2 decades, PHM Health defenders have been at the forefront of the struggle for health for all.
We maintain an independent voice without fear or favor.
But now we need you to stand with us.
We need your support to continue our critical and independent intervention on all health matters.
To contribute to our cause, go to our website, phmovement.org, and find out how.
Contribute
and say
proudly that you support
health
for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Follow the discussions on health issues at the World Health Organization on the WHO Tracker website. Through the WHO Tracker, PHM closely follows the work of the World Health Organization and prepares commentaries on agenda items at the WHO governing body meetings. These include background and critical health perspective analysis with recommendations for policymakers and civil society. Visit the WHO Tracker on the People's Health Movement website at phmovement.org. Join us in the struggle for health for all.
So for the last edition, we have the book in English, chapters available for download in the website. We have a podcast showcasing 7 of its most iconic chapters in 4 languages. What's the idea behind this effort, and what was like to produce it?
Well, one of the limitations of the Global Health Watch until now is that, except for one edition that had a summary published in Spanish, the book has been only published in English. And we aim for this 7th edition to have a proper full translation to Spanish. But for the previous one, we did not have the means to arrange for that. And also we know that the book has while trying to work with a more popular and accessible format and language, but still it may face some barriers in accessibility. So we thought that the podcast, as a shorter and more accessible tool, could reach more people. And we tried to select, again, through a survey of the PHM network, those that were the most relevant chapters for the movement. And not only produce a podcast, but also translate it into the 4 languages of PHM, so Spanish, French, Arabic, and English. The challenge was quite large. It was the first time that we, as PHM, we tried to produce podcasts, and the podcast production itself posed some technical challenges, but the translation of those podcasts posed even more challenges, because we had to translate the script and then to engage voice actors to actually reproduce the podcast. And Yeah, I think it was a very, very big effort. But it was very well received as well. I think that people appreciated the possibility to get a glimpse of the content of Global Health Watch in a very accessible way and in their own language. So definitely it's an experience that in PHM we are building on for future, maybe adjusting the way in which we worked on them, but definitely a path that was very interesting to explore.
During the PHA5, we saw the launching of a comic book, which was 4 booklets addressing issues such as ecosystem health, food, energy, climate, gender justice in health, resistance, forced migration and war, and towards transformation of health systems. Tell us about this effort and how that comic book came about.
Well, I was not there during the first assembly, but people has always spoken about these booklets that accompanied the assembly and how effective they were in conveying critical analysis of health issues in a way that was readily accessible. And actually, when I was at one World Social Forum in Porto Alegre, where I met PHM Global for the first time at the beginning of the 2000s, they had some cartoons about WHO, so World Health Organization, and they were very, very effective. And also in the Global Health Watch, we have some cartoons produced by Indian activists and designers, and they've always been very appreciated. So we had this experience in the movement and also from seeing work from other movements that images and cartoons can be a very effective way of conveying knowledge. And also that stories can be a very effective way of showing how global dynamics impact on individuals' personal trajectories and lives and health. So that's how we were motivated to produce comics from, again, selected chapters of Global Health Watch, and that could match the axis of the People's Health Assembly. So these comics were made in partnership with an Indian company that produces comics and graphic designs, and they are freely available in English and Spanish from our website. And by the way, we will produce a 5th one on, it's ongoing now, the production of a 5th one dedicated to Buen Vivir and ancestral knowledges for health.
PHM is working on the 7th edition of the Global Health Watch, as you mentioned earlier. Why don't you tell us a little bit on how is that work coming out? What can you tell us about the process? And what could readers expect from the Global Health Watch 7?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty satisfied by the fact that having conducted the process for Global Health Watch 6, I was also able to evaluate that process. So we did quite an extensive evaluation of Global Health Watch 6 and tried to make changes that were reflected, from the feedback that we received by both PHM internal activists and allied organizations and networks. So we made a plan based on this feedback, and one of the strongest feedback, as I said before, was to rely more and more on collective writing, so that these chapters would not offer the view of one single expert, but more of a diverse range of people who were knowledgeable about the issue, but also reflecting different geographical positions and perspectives. So this is definitely a direction that we took to work more through collective, not just a collective book, because different individuals write different chapters, but actually have writing groups for different chapters. This is also a way to mentor maybe younger activists or activists who never had the experience of writing, would never write a chapter, by themselves, but in a group, their knowledge and experience can be shared through this exercise. So this is one feature that we're really encouraging for Global Health Watch 7. Definitely, we have a greater diversity in the editorial committee. That's also was another recommendation from Global Health Watch 6, that we would expand and diversify the editorial committee. So we're very happy to have an editorial committee now that's very balanced in terms of regional and background of the participants. And again, not just people internal to PHM, but also some people who are more peripheral or allied and can offer, a perspective more from outside. So this is another strength. And the third big change that we made is we used to publish with a progressive publisher based in London, but for the last edition, this publisher got merged into a very large international publishing company. And this, at the end, was not very aligned with our priorities as a movement. So our priority was that each chapter, as soon as it's ready, could be made available for the movement. And this was not possible based on the agreement we had with the previous publishers. Also, we wanted to retain full rights over translation of our chapters. And again, this was not available. So we negotiated with a new editor, and we are entering the contract now as we speak. It's called Daraja Press. And with them, we have a much greater, because they're a progressive, non-for-profit publisher, a much greater deal of flexibility. So the plan is that the first chapters should be ready towards the end of the year, and we hope to publish them one by one along the first month of 2025. And then at the end, still publish a full, complete book with an introduction and conclusion and index and everything. So by mid-2025, we should have a full book produced. And again, we are trying really hard to secure funding to ensure translation to Spanish at the least. So ideally, we will have the book in English and Spanish by mid-2025.
Where can people find information about the Global Health Watch, its previous editions, and of course, the first edition of the GHW podcast?
So on our website, www.phmovement.org/Global Health Watch, that's where you can find all the information. The previous editions of the book, they're all fully downloadable for free. And also the podcast of Global Health Watch 6, they're accessible, and the comics as well. So all the information is there on our website.
Chiara, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, everybody.
We are the People's Health Movement, bringing together health rights activists from around the world. Join us in the struggle for health for all. This episode of Charter4Health was produced by the PHM Global Secretariat. Archival audio, tech support and editing by Luisa Fernanda Betela. My name is Miguel Garcia, and this is Charter4Health, a PHM podcast. You can find much more about PHM and its call to action by logging into our website, phmovement.org. This is a People's Health Movement production.
We
are the People's Health Movement.
PHM brings together health rights activists and organizations from around the world.
For over 2 decades, PHM Health defenders have been at the forefront of the struggle for health for all.
We maintain an independent voice without fear or favor.
But now we need you to stand with us.
We need your support to continue our critical and independent intervention on all health matters.
To contribute to our cause, go to our website, phmovement.org, and find out how.
Contribute
and say
proudly
that you support
health
for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Health for all.
Follow the discussions on health issues at the World Health Organization on the WHO Tracker website. Through the WHO Tracker, PHM closely follows the work of the World Health Organization and prepares commentaries on agenda items at the WHO governing body meetings. These include background and critical health perspective analysis with recommendations for policymakers and civil society. Visit the WHO Tracker on the People's Health Movement website at phmovement.org. Join us in the struggle for health for all.
Hey everyone, I'm Chiara Bodini, co-editor of the Global Health Watch 6, flagship publication of the People's Health Movement. I am also a producer of the GHW Podcast. Listen to the first season of our podcast in English, Spanish, French, and Arabic on iVox. You can also go to our website phmovement.org/GHW-podcast.
As part of the People's Health Movement, we have been very interested in the process of the social determinants. And a major reason why many of us are here is to make sure that the promise of the Commission is not dissipated because countries are unwilling today to take action, even when evidence exists that action is possible and action is necessary. We are also here to release and project the publication of Global Health Watch 3, which is an analysis of what is happening in the world today in the area of health. It is also a proposal for doing things in a different way. It is also a story of how people are already doing things in a different way. And it's possible for many of us to adopt the different practices, some in countries, some in smaller situations.